East Podcast, WATP.
We're going to listen to Opie and Anthony from the year 2005. And this is actually very interesting and revealing. They're talking about the time that they first started working together, WBAB on Long Island. And Opie's working 7 to midnight. That's his shift. Remember, he's been successful since he was 18 years old.
Yes, of course.
This is his successful radio shift on an alternative rock station from 7 until midnight. And he started bringing Anthony in. He wasn't necessarily part of the show at that time, but he was on pretty regularly because he was doing parody songs and they would do bits and he would just kind of co-host with them from time to time. And they're talking about how Opie recognized that this show was going to take off. So he went to management and had a proposition for them.
It's a pretty interesting story because I was doing nights at WBAB and doing pretty well on my own. You know, I did all right. And then, Anthony and I got together and we knew we had something and we knew we were going to take it really far. We knew right off the bat, within our first week of broadcast, that we had something that was pretty cool. So then I went to BAB and said, look, man, we're doing nights. We were getting a buzz because Ant was doing my show off and on for like 3 or 4 months. I'm like, we're getting a really good buzz here. And, you got some dead weights in the other slots, let's be honest here. Move us up. Move us up. We want to stay. We're from Long Island. Just move us up and we'll stay.
All right, so Opie comes in and goes, hey, why don't you give us a better time slot? Wouldn't that be cool if we got a better time slot on the station? Well, the answer was no. So I love that Opie talks about buzz. I mean, this has happened just recently, our most recent segment. Anthony's got no buzz. He's talking about the buzz they had, not ratings. Yeah, Anthony was coming out. We had some buzz going. What about ratings? Were people listening to it at all? Or no, you were buzzed? You were buzzed in the studio? That's what it was?
Ratings are overrated.
Yes, they're overrating. So this is him talking about WBAB responding to his request.
And they pretty much didn't go for that idea. So I'm like, all right. I basically said, I'm going to go find us another gig. I sent out 3 tapes. All 3 places wanted us. Yep. It was Dallas, it was WAAF, and I forgot the third one now. I think it was Cleveland or something like that.
So Opie put together a tape with him and Anthony, because now he's trying to combine forces, start the Opie and Anthony Show, and he's shipping that out since WBAB on Long Island didn't want to help them out. And this is the interesting part of this story, because as we know, Opie always talks about how he took an unpolished tin knocker and saw something in him and brought him on to be his radio host, co-host, because he knew he needed someone who wasn't like so pro and slick. He wanted someone who was a little more raw because that's what the radio needed at that time. And whenever you hear these stories, you always think, and I always thought, Opie really carried Anthony for those first however many years when it was the Opie and Anthony Show. Because Anthony's just like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, and Opie's the radio guy. Well, this is interesting.
Then they decided, because Anthony was a Long Island guy too, they pulled him into a closed-door meeting and said, look, we want to give you Opie's show.
Yeah, they were going to then give me...
This was after 3 years of dedication to WBAB being the only show in recent years that had any type of buzz at all. And this is the thanks I got.
So Opie's shopping the tapes out, and meanwhile... management's just like, hey, Anthony, we'd rather have you.
Psst, over here.
Yeah, we'd rather have you on the air. They wanted to give Anthony Opie's slot, the 7 to midnight shift on WBAB. And he wasn't even a full-time radio guy. He was still doing his day job, and he would come in when he could and hang out with Opie. And that was enough of an audition to be like, yeah, you could do this. It'd be better than Opie had it, actually. So I thought that was interesting. I'd never heard that before. And so this is more about them giving Ant this offer.
But explain what they said to you behind closed doors. It was amazing. Because Anthony, at this point, I mean, you got to remember, it's 10 years ago. Right. Raw talent, all that. We all know,
Dude, it was
what
after,
Anthony does.
It was after we got the gig, and we were going to go to AAF, that they came to me, knowing now that we have a job together. Me and Ope, we're going to AAF. They came to me and said, we want you to take over Opie's slot, doing the 7 to midnight shift at BAB. Whatever you need, we'll put it in place. It'll be great. I think you're going to do well. And it's trying then to get, which would screw up the gig in Boston. I'm sure Ope would go there and do great anyway.
Well, what happened was
they had hired us together. And
all right. So this is the radio station going, all right, Opie got an offer, whatever, dude. But bye-bye, see you later. Anthony, though, we'd really like to make an offer to you. Whatever you need, we'll make that happen for you. And, of course, Anthony sees the opportunity to go with Opie to Boston. So that is ultimately what ended up happening. But Opie now is talking about how, well, he also got an offer to do a solo show in Boston. But this is also quite telling.
Well, what happened with the AF gig, I don't think we've ever told this. Ron Valeri heard just me at the time, and he was going to give me nights at AF, the same shift I was doing at BAB.
Yep.
But then I was like, well, Ron, that's cool, and I'm ready to move on. But I just started working with this new guy, Anthony, and I want you to hear some tapes because I think it's really cool stuff. Because they had Afternoon Drive open as well.
Yep.
So Opie was offered a position on WAAF, but it was the exact same shift that he was currently working at WBAB. So that they were like, yeah, you want to spin records between 7 and midnight? We could use a guy to do that. So isn't that interesting? Because Opie always talks about how he was going to take off no matter what. He was this radio guy who was killing it. He was going to make a lateral move. It was only teaming up with Anthony, and even then, people wanted Anthony over him. I thought this was fascinating. I did not know about this.
That's the kind of move you make when you're sick of your boss.
Right.
So,
yeah, I just want to get out of this company.
Yeah.
I'll just go somewhere else and do the same thing. But this is talking about how things could have been very different.
So at the worst, I guess I could have moved up there and did my nights at AF, and Anthony could have done nights at BAB.
Yeah, and I could have taken Opie's old job and left him up there, not in afternoons. What type of scumbag
Well, it's the business.
move is that?
The business is filled with scumbags like that. So when you find people you trust around you, you keep them close, and then you fight everybody else.
Oh, how did that work out? Womp womp. It's too bad. But yeah, it could have all been different. We could have had them split up and Anthony start being a regular disc jockey on the radio and getting wacky with things. And who knows what would have happened, but we know how it did end up playing out. Thanks for the emailer who sent that in to me, because that was just in the middle of a long clip where they were going after another guy on XM or something. And so that was just like all of a sudden that got brought up. Fascinating information.
And I'm always taken aback by Opie not stammering or using funny voices,
Yeah, when you hear old Opie,
Yeah,
you're like,
almost
who is that?
unrecognizable.
sounds like a broadcaster.
Yeah.
Tell that story again, Anthony. Nowadays, why don't you tell the story again? Everything has to be. Although when he does talk to other people, he doesn't do that as much. Him being by himself is not good for him.
He pronounced cheese correctly.
Who are these podcasts?